Okay, guys. Hi, it's Chef Decker here. You're watching this. I'm in Toronto, and I'm going to pick up on about slide 11 or 12 where we left off. I printed the PowerPoint so that I can kind of talk you through it, just like I would if we were in class together. So whenever you're watching this, hi, I promise I'll work hard on this conference so I come back with really cool, innovative stuff to get our brains firing again when I come back. But let's begin by talking about feedback. And let me hit you right with a ripped from the headlines feedback. So let me first acknowledge that you're human and I'm human, and feedback is tough. Why is feedback tough? Because sometimes it could be critical or it could be negative. And our instinct or our proclivity as humans is to kind of get our back up and sort of bristle at feedback, especially negative feedback. Oh, we love the positive feedback. Our gnocchi are great. We love that. Yeah, it's a great dish. But I'm going to tell you two pieces of real feedback that I got from the Tuesday Cuisines of the World class. I got a lot of people that said that the catfish dish itself was dynamic, that the flavors were incredible, but that the plate presentation was a little humdrum because although I didn't see it, I got feedback that the colors were very monotone. I guess the sauce and the catfish itself kind of were of the same hue or very similar, and it needed some sort of pop on the plate. Don't forget, people eat with their eyes first, so we have to entertain people visually before we stimulate their taste buds. That's hard to hear, right? Because that feels like criticism. But I want you to know that monitoring feedback and welcoming feedback becomes the lifeblood of any business. And we should consider it a gift. Because you know what? Those customers who are willing to give us feedback become huge gifts to us because they give us the opportunity to make it better and get it right. What happens more often is that customers will just silently slip away. You've done this, I've done this. A restaurant might have been, and we're not going to take the time to say, hey, you know what you could have done better that would have really impressed me and make me go again, or even better, tell people about it. We just don't go again, right? We just don't go again. So if somebody gives us feedback, I want you to really start building that muscle of encouraging it and leaving the personal side of it at the door, because it's not personal. It's business. You know that old saying. This is business. Do you want business? Then you got to take the good with the bad. So not staying on top of feedback, not staying on top of trends and things like that can be really deadly. So I want you to start welcoming and inviting feedback. How can you immediately apply this right now? Whatever business you are, especially if you're in the restaurant business, ask the front of the house for feedback. You know what gives you feedback? Plates. If there's a lot of food on the plate, there's something that your customer is trying to tell you. If all of the rice is on the plate for a particular entree, maybe that wasn't a good pick as a side. So use the feedback, welcome the feedback. But if we don't stay on top of, moving to the second half of this slide, if we don't stay on top of trends and what's happening, then we can get nice and comfy, and that can lead to just maintaining the status quo. And for some of us, that feels okay. We might not be doing anything crazy, but at least we're maintaining. We're at the same level. But status quo leads to something in business and in management called structural inertia. And as you can see on the next slide, structural inertia can be the kiss of death for business. Because don't forget, our customers are fickle, and our customers have a certain amount of money and time and limited resources they will spend, and they're going to spend that resource on whoever they choose. So they may not want to spend it on someone who does it the same way that it's always been done. So by definition, status quo or structural inertia is being comfy, predictable, never changing, never adapting. Now, some of you, if we were in the class, you may push back and say, wait a minute. What about a restaurant like Carmine's that's in Vegas and New York City and probably some other cities around the world? They have done it the same way for however many years they've been in existence. People love it. They love the consistency of it. Yes, but their entire business model is not the same as it was, let's say, 100 years ago. What do I mean? Well, 100 years ago, maybe it was a cash-only business. Or 100 years ago, maybe you couldn't get home delivery. Or 100 years ago, maybe you couldn't have bought their pasta or their sauces or their frozen entrees at a grocery store. So it doesn't mean that you can't have elements of your business that the customers love and would be devastated if you changed. It just means that as society changes and expects different things, you're willing to change to give that. Let me give you a really good example from religion. And I know that that sounds crazy because you're thinking, first of all, religion isn't even a business, but it is kind of a nonprofit business, right? It doesn't exist to make profit, but it exists to serve, especially churches, particular set of people and provide a service. Well, there is a disruptor in the church space named Andy Stanley. And what he did is he looked at everything that this generation rejected about church and he changed it. And he has been hugely successful in the Atlanta market, and there have been a number of copycats that have taken his model. Even if you have no interest in religion, or you have no interest in church, if you're Catholic, because this guy's Protestant, or you're Jewish, or you're Muslim, or whatever, his business mind is worth following. And those of you who have got hooked on leadership podcasts like me, go on and follow the Andy Stanley Leadership Podcast. He just interviewed last month Horst Schulze, who is the founder and president of the Ritz-Carlton. And this guy, Andy Stanley, has a lot of really good concepts. And hey, he took an entire demographic who said no thank you to churches, and now he's exploded it all throughout the Atlanta market and beyond. His model has gone really far. Okay, so this is just a little fun slide. If we were in class, we would play a little game, because who doesn't want 2 free questions right on their next quiz? But just challenge yourself. Can you name the difference between a mission and a vision statement? So now we're going to move into developing and adapting our mission to our stakeholders. And this is one of my favorite case studies of the whole book. I am so sad that I am not with you in person to go over this, but what I want you to do on your own is I want you to read the Johnson and Wales case study. Please, please, please don't miss this. I want you to read this because I think, guys, you're going to be blown away by how this mission, written all these decades ago, was able to give direction and resource allocation to the current members during a crisis that this company had. And you'll read about the crisis that they had. Some of you weren't even born yet when it happened, but you can understand it. Google it, read about it, find out what happened. But what happened is, in this case study, this mission statement that was written decades before this crisis happened, all of a sudden, they had Tylenol that became tainted with cyanide, and they had chaos everywhere, right? And your first thought is, oh my gosh, we are going to lose tons of money. What do? We better go make sure that everybody is doing everything they can to protect us financially. It's not what the mission said. The mission named who the most important stakeholders were, and I want you to go back and read that, and I want you to see the beauty of how this mission helped managers formulate a plan during a crisis. You know what triage is? Triage is when you go to an emergency room and they kind of rate you in who do you go for first, right? Because a heart attack victim or a gunshot victim would be way more important than a broken bone or stitches, right? So you prioritize them. And what a mission does is it triages us, it triages circumstance during a crisis. So go back and read that. The mission was for a particular stakeholder before profits all those 60 years ago. So don't miss that, because it's one of the coolest examples of how a mission can really direct people in your company, even when you don't even exist on this earth anymore. So let's move to vision. Let's talk about some vision statements. The vision of Starbucks is to be the premier purveyor of the finest coffee in the world while maintaining our uncompromising principles as we grow. So the vision says that they're going to be the best, and you really can't argue that they might be there already, while maintaining uncompromising principles, because I think we all know of people or of companies that have compromised their integrity or their principles as they grew. So that is a great example of vision. Marriott's to be the world's leading provider of hospitality services. That's a little bit smaller, but it tells us world. So, Marriott, which go back and read how they started. They started as a little root beer, why can't I say that? Root beer and hot dog stand. That's how Marriott started. So they started there, and then they started growing into hotels. And when they got to that point, somebody, Marriott, wrote out their vision statement, and now look at them. A root beer cart to world's leading provider of hospitality services. Royal Caribbean, to empower, we love that word, and enable our employees to deliver the best vacation experience to our guests, thereby generating superior return to our stakeholders. So we see that financial returns are going to be very important here, and enhancing the well-being of our communities. Well, Royal Caribbean is a global brand, so they are really committed to enhancing the well-being of all the communities that they exist in corporately and they dock in. So that gives them a vision, right? Probably when this company first started out, they didn't have all the environmental concerns that we as businessmen and women care about today. But the vision tells them that whatever it is, at whatever, wherever they are in that moment in time, that they need to improve the well-being of the communities. Heck, not Steve Jobs, who are we talking about? Jeff Bezos from Amazon. Do you guys know that he's investing millions and millions and millions of dollars into, I think it's called Blue something, Google it. But he's investing in space travel. And he's thinking about a world and travel and destinations on other planets. What if there's hotels and stuff there? These visions will have to be transportable to wherever the business is operating then. So this gives you a really cool idea of how you're going to interpret visions and missions. And I hope you're looking at visions and mission statements of companies that you're willing to work for, because you're an incredible resource. So you make sure that their vision and core values and mission align with who you are, because you better make sure that they deserve you, because you're excellent. Read on page 85 this story about how Schultz came into Starbucks. This is another really cool story. This whole chapter is filled with awesome business stories. So Howard Schultz, who's the CEO of Starbucks, he started out in the Starbucks business, as you'll read. And what happened is that he had this idea for kind of that third place, this Italian coffee bar, and his idea was rejected by the owners. They were like, yeah, I don't think it's going to take off that well. So they parted ways. But they're regretful now, huh? And so then there was an opportunity, and you'll read in this, when Schultz was able to come back into the business. Now imagine being the employees. Imagine being there and maybe seeing this guy who was kind of viewed as this nutty visionary. Yeah, his idea is kind of crazy. It'll never take off. He leaves the company, you stay. Maybe even he asked you to join him, and you're like, no, buddy. I don't really align with that idea. I'm going to stay right here because I align with getting a paycheck from here, and you're kind of crazy. So now all of a sudden, you're an employee, you cross paths with him, you didn't align with him, he's the owner. What would you be feeling? Read this case study because it's really cool. And he comes in, he gets down on their level. Guys, we talked in week 1, and we keep talking about how to be a dynamic leader. Man, did he encourage the heart. Imagine these people that stuck with him all these years now. What did he say to him? What did he promise them? How do you think they felt then? And then how inspired do you think they felt after he kind of breathed out his vision for the future to them? So I want you to think about that too. And don't not read these case studies because they're gold. Okay, organizational values are the next slide. Organizational values are kind of like what's important to the business, right? So they will also guide decisions and behavior. Your values will determine who feels valued. So if your value is to be a great socially responsible member of the community, then the people of your community will feel really valued, right? And make no mistake, we already said that the CEO or you guys, the people that want to create businesses, you're coming up with these items that will be in your strategic direction. Well, you can't separate who you are from the business that you're going to create in the sense of values, right? So if you value a strong work ethic, then you're going to value that in your employees. You're going to look for really strong work ethics in the people that you hire. That's going to be very important to you. If honesty is important to you, then you're also going to make that a core value of your business. It's going to be really important that no matter what, you're honest with your employees and you're honest with your customers. What else is important to you as a business that could be, or as a person that might be important to you? Okay, I know one. Millennials really value work-life balance. Not all companies have that as a value. You know that because you probably worked for some of them, even you millennials. But if you are someone who really values work-life balance, then that's going to be a value for your business as well. So you can see how there's an interconnectedness, one that can't be taken away from the other. So that next slide there just then talks about how your values will affect your business. And again, make sure that your values align with the values of the company that you work for. Some time ago, we were kind of redrafting our value statement here at the college, and one of our core values kind of morphed into hospitality. And hospitality, according to Danny Myers, is not a one-size-fits-one business model. Or a one-size-fits-all. I said that wrong. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's a one-size-fits-one. I need to look into your situation. Sean Tyson, if you're watching this, you and I just had a conversation about this in education. You know, there are things that, yes, rules are rules, but every business needs to understand that people buy products and services, and we have to understand that sometimes we have to make a one-on-one, a hospitality experience. So we at Lackawanna College have a value of hospitality, and that really speaks to me because that's one of my core values too. So I appreciate working for a company that embraces the value of hospitality or creating those one-size-fits-one experience. You're going to read about Darden in your case studies and the values at the Darden Restaurant Group. You'll see their core values there, you know, integrity, fairness, respect, caring, diversity, always learning, always teaching. So it's cyclical there. So go through that. You have a really fun case study to read about Disney's Polynesian Resort. What's really cool about Disney is they have a global brand, but then they have a value script, because each time you step into a different park or a different a different section or ride or whatever, even in, let's see, Animal Kingdom, you have the Pandora section. When you walk in there, they're speaking a different language, there's different food, there's a different cultural feel. So Disney is masterful at creating values. So when you read about the Polynesian restaurant, you'll see that all the employees, or cast members as they're called for Disney, they get indoctrinated with the values of a Polynesian community. This sense of family, the ohana, that everybody, even though those people you work with become part of your family, aloha, and what that means in the Polynesian culture and value system, and why that's something you can experience at the Polynesian Resort. So also take time to look at that. There are also some negative factors that can affect our values, and this isn't something that you don't already know. Discrimination, immigration, politics, religious differences. This is the same in personal life as it is in business. So we need to be aware of that. Let's step into, as we're talking about strategic direction, one thing that has become really important, and I've mentioned this several times, is social mission. Buyers today want to know that they buy from companies who have good values that they can align with. Guys, I'm not saying that this is volitionary anymore. I'm not saying that if you want to do it, you can do it. I'm telling you that there has been large resources of money that have gone to research demographics, and buyers today want to know that businesses are socially responsible or have a values mission that they can support. Why do you think this became so important? Because as a society, we have watched so much corruption in business that we are no longer willing to give our business to corrupt people. So social responsibility has become really important, or responsibility to people and to humans. So we have an economic responsibility to be productive and profitable and to meet the needs of people, right? So that's one area of social responsibility. We have a legal responsibility to people to achieve the economic goals of the business within the confines of what the laws are of the particular region that we're practicing business in. We have a moral responsibility. This is where ethics and morals and that kind of stuff comes in, to abide by those unwritten codes of law that are derived from the societies that we lived in. Remember, we studied Africa, and there it is morally wrong for women to work. It's not the case for us in the United States. So those morals or those societal norms differ from region to region. And then there's discretionary, and that is, like I said, volitional, or like that means voluntarily, or philanthropic in nature. So it's important that businesses see you giving back to people. Discretionary means it's, at your discretion. You can do as much as you can, but they really like to see. That's why, guys, in business, that Tom's model, the Blake McCoskey, who is the CEO of Tom, that model of you buy one, we give one, is really big. And now we have Tom's that does that. We have the eyeglass Warby Parker. We have that brandless brand that I told you about, that everything is like $3 on there. Boomba's Socks does it. Did you know that socks are the #1 most requested item at a homeless shelter? So every time you buy a pair of Bombas, which are pretty stinking expensive, they donate a pair of socks to a homeless shelter. So you can feel good about it. And differentiation, you may be willing to pay a little bit more because your purchase is helping people, and that helps you feel really good about it. I've said I like to do Pilates. When you do Pilates, you need grippy stuff on your socks. So I am willing to pay $14 or $15 for a pair of these socks. One, because I really need them in order to do the workout. But why am I willing to pay a little bit extra when I can probably get a pair at Target for maybe $10? Well, because I really like that they're accomplishing a social mission. They're taking care of homeless people and giving them warm socks for their feet. So that's social mission and social responsibility a little bit. Enterprise strategy, as we wrap up, joins ethical thinking. I told you it was coming back, and strategic thinking. So this is, we often see mission statement provide clues about the ethics and the strategy of a team. So here's some examples. We focus on satisfying customer needs. Our goal is to provide a satisfying work environment in which our employees can grow and develop. Our primary purpose is to maximize shareholder return. We focus on giving back to the communities in which we operate. So let me wrap up this class by going over a few of the ethical frames that most of you have studied by now. Economic theory, you don't study in our ethics class, but you guys already know this, I think. Economic theory says that the purpose of business is to maximize profits. So according to economic ethics, if it makes profits, it's moral. Could you push back already? Yeah, I bet. Okay, legal theory. Legal theory says that as long as you are operating within the confines of law, that it's ethical. Well, we already know that there's flaws with this too, right? Because there might be things in food that it's legal to do, but it's not okay. It could harm people, and once we know better, we need to do better, right? Think about all the things in our country that have been legal but horrifically unethical. Think about the Jim Crow laws. It was legal. It was horribly unethical. So this theory has flaws in it as well. Religious theory holds that everyone should act in accordance with religious thinking. Well, that works unless you don't believe in religion or a higher power. So that has holes in that theory as well. Utilitarian, you all know this one. This one focuses on outcomes from decisions and says that everyone should act in a way that generates the greatest benefit for the largest number of people. So think about this in restaurants. You have $5,000 to spend. Are you going to spend it on, I don't know, a new piece of equipment that would make your team really, really happy, sous vide or something like that, or an induction oven or something like that? Or should you should you spend the money in a way that would have a greater far-reaching net benefit for a greater number of people? Universalist theory, this focuses on the motive or the intent of the decision. This kind of steps into Kantian ethics. Remember Immanuel Kant? And he talked about, would I be willing for everyone else in the world to make this same decision? So if I say that it's unethical to lie ever, I have to will it, that it's wrong to lie in any situation, always, at every time. So those are some that you know most of those, or you're familiar, or you can talk about them. It's important that your employees and the people that you work with understand your ethics, that you can communicate them. It's really important to know that the ethics will vary from country to country because culture varies, right? That shared set of beliefs. So what I want you to do for this week while I'm gone, go through, reread this, look at your PowerPoint, outline it, take the chapter 3 quiz, and then I want you to read and outline chapter 4 again, because we'll do that chapter when I get back, and we will introduce this business project, and I can't wait to see what you all do. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.